I wonder if there's people out there that can hear what other people are thinking. That'd be kind of crazy. Nah, that's too crazy. That's that's not right. But what if they knew I wasn't wearing pants right now? Oh my god, what if they're reading my mind right now? That wouldn't be good. I have a lot of dirty thoughts. I don't know if that. I wonder what kind of video I should make. People expect so much of me. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I should do something on thief raids? Nah. Maybe I should do something on a hero class? I'm not feeling it. Ooh, maybe I should do something on Epic Doctrine. Ooh, I should definitely do something on Epic Doctrine. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Alright guys, so today we are going to talk about popular infantry units, doctrine, and veterancy setups. I will set up to where you can jump to whichever units you want to check out. I am only going to do the popular ones. I'm not doing all infantry. So forgive me if you do want to ask any questions about units that I did not mention, feel free, and I will tell you doctrine and veterancy setups I recommend. So outside of that, if you like this video, you know what to do. Hit that like button. If you enjoy my content, hit that sub button. We are almost at 2,000 subs, guys. And I do want to thank everyone that's helped us get us here so far. And with that said, let's jump into it. Alright guys, a popular unit right now would definitely be ShieldMaidens, and they just dropped, so a lot of people are learning how to use them. So I'm just going to touch on them and kind of give you guys an idea what to aim for. So for the ShieldMaidens, they are T5 infantry, and looking at their veterancy, so top line is more oriented towards defense with the spear. The spear setup is more defensive, and then the sword is more offensive because you get the charge and you get your triple strike. Now, triple strike helps you decrease the armor on the enemies that you're attacking, and then the charge increases damage. So that's also pretty cool. So if you're trying to increase damage on your team, you definitely want to go to sword route. If you're trying to increase a defensive formation on a point or on a wall, at a breach, you can definitely use these guys in their guardian formation, which will increase defense buff nearby allies. So they are very much so a support unit, which there's not too many like that. Maybe Paladins a little bit, but these guys are like the kind of the first of their own kind, where they have a lot of different buffs that they can give you. They're a lot like longsword, when longswords can give the heal, and then you have glaives can give you damage buffs, and then longsword can also do speed buffs. So there's a lot of different things when it comes to support, and it's interesting how they made these units. So now let's go ahead and look at the doctrines. Now, you can only use the spear doctrines on them. You can't use sword and shield, which is kind of unfortunate. I would have loved to been able to use iron sights on these ShieldMaidens, but we'll use what we can get, right? So first things first, I would definitely increase their block. Overall, it'll be nice to have extra block when they're fighting. They can counter Imperial Pikes. They can run into Fortebraccios and survive. So that's something really cool about these guys. They do have an issue with cav, but they did just implement a new patch where they're supposed to be able to withhold their stance against a cav charge. So I will have to look into that some more, so don't quote me on that. That's something that just happened today, I think. So I'll look at the patch notes some more and test them. So also, I would highly recommend increasing their defense even more here, because the biggest thing you want to do, since they're support, you want to keep them alive. So I'm going very defensive oriented. And if I was on the veterancy, I would go more so for the damage buffs and more penetration drops on enemies, just because I enjoy attacking. So that's something I would pursue over the defense. Now, also, you can get the heal doctrine on these guys, so that's a big deal too. So I would definitely use that just to help with sustain. They have pretty good defense, so giving them the health, sit there and keep regenerating, they can sustain a lot longer. And then over here, you also can use your Epic Spear Doctrine 2, which would be great for increasing blocks and more and block recovery. And then last but not least, you can use the damage reduction, reduces damage taken by 30. They are heavily lacking damage, but they're not designed to be very destructive. They're designed to support and be defensive and support their nearby allies. That's what these guys are designed for. So that's what you should definitely try to use them as. Don't use them by themselves. Always work with other units because you're going to have those units help you in the long run. Honestly, this unit will teach you how to work with teammates because you need to rely on each other for the buffs and then also for the defense and the damage. So definitely work with housemates or friends and just, orientate these. Like if you had these guys with Imperial Arquebusiers, maybe you can see like how much more damage they're doing, and see how long they can sustain and allow the Imperial Arquebusiers to keep shooting. Like there's a lot of things to test out. You can test it with the Imperial Pike Walk, and then you also have the ShieldMaidens with them. There's a lot you can do. So definitely let me know what you guys are doing and what you guys found works with these guys. I'd love to hear about it. They are a brand new unit, so I'm kind of curious on how everyone's using them, but they are 100% a support. So definitely check that out. The first TW infantry unit I want to talk about would be Stalwarts. They're by far one of the most popular. So really quick, I'm going to show you the veterancy I'm using. I definitely went top line to increase their brace formation. Gives them low health, gives them a little more damage. So knowing that I went that way on the veterancy, gonna want more defense doctrine. Okay, so here's what I did for doctrines. You're gonna want to go with more block. More block is always great. The harder it is to break the block, the longer they can keep their position. More defense, and then we got the healing doctrine. It restores 150 health every 10 seconds. I think it's every 45 seconds that you can do that. Something like that. It's like 30 or 45 seconds. I forget how long it is. So yeah, if you can sustain with healing and you have all this defense and you have some more block right here with the Epic Spear Doctrine 2, and then you also have the reduces damage by 30, like they are just bricks. Like you're running into a brick wall with this setup. And then also on the veterancy, your offense and your setup for the brace. So always use the brace formation with these guys, no matter what. Unless you're trying to cover flamethrowers, you might stand them up. But even when they're in their brace formation, their shields cover a lot. So definitely keep that in mind. These guys are really good for entry points. Set them up with Fortebraccios, set them up with flamethrowers, set them up with Falconettis. Or even have your own artillery set up with them around it so people can't get to it. By far one of the best units for territory war right now, especially in sieges. And obviously in field battles, they are iffy because they can get ran over by hussars. You got Laos that can run up to them, do some good damage. Imp walks can, get around them and walk them over. So definitely use them in sieges. By far their most popular use right now. All right, let's go ahead and jump into Paladins. I think they're kind of a TW unit. It matters on like the scale of your house. Like I think mid-tier Paladins are still viable. Maybe not so much towards endgame, but I feel like they're still used plenty. So I want to talk about it. So with these guys, you have your sword and shield doctrines that you can get on here. So one that I would highly recommend is the beautiful Epic Sword Doctrine 4, which gives your sword infantry Ironsides, which increases their defenses, all their defenses by 150 for 10 seconds, which is great. Like when you're in the heat of the battle, you pop the Ironsides, you deflect a lot of damage or absorb a lot of damage. And then from there, you can just hold out a bit longer on a point when someone's pushing a breach. So what I would recommend, they're also really good on the walls because there's so many of them. Really quick, let's look at their veterancy setup. I like to use them offensively. Some people like to use them defensively. I can understand the defensive aspect because just for survivability, plus with their heal, it's super amazing. But I went top because the heal is actually, there's a lot of cooldowns for the heal and their charge. So that I went top line. All right, because they already have plenty of defense. In my opinion, I think they have plenty of defense. So let's go ahead and jump into the doctrines. And so what I would recommend right away is Ironsides for sure. That should be like the biggest one you're aiming for. And then you could increase more damage, but I also think reducing the charge is good too. If you can sustain them, that'd be great. Another thing that's a must is the defense doctrine. There's actually a purple version of this doctrine. They don't have it on here, but you definitely want this guy. So I would definitely go these two, get your defense up. And then you could get anti-cav on there, but I don't think that's viable. They lose most of the time to cav unless it's like Laos are used incorrectly or a hussars stop on top of them instead of through them. I definitely can see that. So another thing I would recommend is to maybe look at their charge. Their charge is really good. So either go for a cooldown or go for more damage. I would go for the reduced time, because you run them in, do a bunch of damage with the charge, you hit V, you pop their heal, you pop their Ironsides, and then once all that's done, you pull them back out, and then you should only have to wait like maybe 20 seconds or so, and then you can do the same thing, like rinse and repeat. Charge them in, get all that damage off. Just be careful what you're charging into. You don't want to be charging into Fortebraccios or Imperial Pike Walk, but one thing you should know about these guys is that they can get up from an Imperial Pike Walk. So if Imperial Pikes are walking your Paladins, just hit V. Just keep tapping V and they'll get up. They'll get up and maintain their block. So definitely check that out, test it out. I did a lot of testing on that. I know it works, so definitely do that. All right, so you could use them to counter Imp Walks. Or even get an Imp Walk to start going. So that the cav can come in afterwards. It could be a good bait. So these are the first three right here. What I would recommend after this is I highly recommend maybe getting a more damage in sieges, because you don't use these guys in fields, right? So I mean, it might make sense to just go this route, because that actually does more damage than the slashing damage is 30 more. So I would highly recommend going that route. You could go for increases block by 150. I think this is a good one too. So you could, if you feel like you have enough damage, you could throw the block in there. Or let's see here. Got here. You could go more damage towards units. So you could do this. This is what you could do. Do this and then maybe swap this guy out for breakthrough like this. So this is a setup I would recommend. Again, there is a better defense doctrine that they're not showing here. So definitely check that out as I put my phone on mute because it doesn't want to stop ever. So yeah, that is how I would set up my Paladins. Again, I go offense on the veterancy, and then I go heavier defense on the doctrine. So I always kind of counter to kind of balance it out. You could go more so one way or the other, totally up to you. Again, if you guys have different setups that you want to share, please let us know. I'd love to share that information with people. So all right, let's move on. All right, let's start talking about Azaps. So for their veterancy, I definitely went top line for Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike by far is their bread and butter. It helps them deflect damage and then strike back. Bottom line's decent for really high burst damage, but they become quite squishy. So what I recommend is going top line Counter-Strike, and then what I would recommend from there in the doctrines, you're gonna want to go heavy defense because they do plenty of damage and they can CC heroes. So let's definitely set this up. So first thing we're going to want to do is Ironsides on these bad boys. Almost like a Paladin setup, but slightly different because their charge isn't as strong as a Paladin charge. So I'm not focusing on their charge as much. I want to make their on watch super effective and their counter strike. So with that, I want to make sure that we have some defense here. And then we're going to want to focus on increasing the block because they have a buckler that actually does pretty decent. So these are the defense doctrines I go for. And now I'm going to go offense. And what I want to do here is I'm going to definitely go for breakthrough doctrine, and then I'm also going to increase the slashing damage right here. Boom. This is the route I'm gonna go right here. I mean, you could go hero, like, so this last one's iffy. Like, you could go assassination if you want to be better at killing heroes. The way I always look at sustained for units and going after heroes is you put the units on the units and then you focus the hero. Or if you can maneuver around the units and get your units on top of the hero, you just hard focus the hero. Because once the hero's out of the picture, you don't have to worry about the units being super, being able to use their skills, right? So you can just start picking off the units after that. So what I always tell my guys in my house is focus the hero, take out the units. If you can't get to the hero, then you got to take out the unit. You know, so that's something I teach. So I'm just kind of letting you guys know that. So this is a setup I would use. Again, there is a better defense doctrine that you can use. I believe it's like 100 or 120 for piercing defense, slashing defense. Increases that. So yeah, this is the setup. As you can see on the right side, you can read everything off. Again, I don't mess with the charge on these guys too much. I care more about their on watch and their counter strike. Definitely focus on that. Like, because they have really cool, low cooldowns. So you don't even need the cooldowns for them. You switch between your counter strike, and then once you're done with your counter strike, you put your on watch on, and then after that, you can take them out, and then maybe charge them back in. Use rinse and repeat, kind of like Paladins. They're not shield units, so they're not built for like sustaining and staying in battle for a very long time. Like, you put them in, do a bunch of damage, and then you pull them out. All right. I feel like that's something a lot of players, especially new players, don't realize. Like, you send your units in, you do the damage, and then they just leave them there to die. Well, you can pull them back out, even if you lose half of them. Keep half, and then try it again. You'll be more effective that way. All right, so that is the setup here. Let's move on. All right, guys. I know javelins kind of have their place in territory wars, but they're not really big in endgame. But mid tier, they definitely are used a lot, especially early tier of territory wars for smaller houses to medium sized houses. So I will go ahead and go over javelin sergeants. Well, I'm going to do Imperial Javelins, and then you can use the exact same setup for Javelin Sergeants too. And I'll tell you the few differences that you could make. So let's go ahead and take a look at Imperial Javelins. Now, for Veterancy, you definitely go top line. You want to get the days. That's huge. And then the bleed damage from the shield is cool to have. The Imperial Javelins are, kind of set up for melee, but don't use them as melee. You really don't want to. They don't do enough damage. They don't have enough reach with their jabs. So you definitely want to use them for killing heroes. That is their bread and butter. Like, they are amazing at just sniping heroes. They have crazy good accuracy. So let's go ahead and take a look at their doctrines. Now, they have good accuracy, so like, you don't have to worry about that. So one thing that Imperial Javelins are lacking is ammo. So one thing I am going to be looking at is increasing the ammo. Besides that, definitely want to boost their armor pen, anything to do with their javelins, because you don't want these guys getting damaged. Of course, if they're getting pelted by range and stuff, they'll start dying, but they actually have some good formations to block range. They have a nice shield wall. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about increasing their jav damage. So let's go ahead and do increased piercing damage by 60 and increases piercing armor pen by 180. So epic javelin doctrine 2 for sure. And then on this side, you're gonna want to grab the increased javelin damage by 180. I mean, they already do a ton of damage, but the whole idea is if they do miss a little bit, they still kill everything in that area. So like, if there's a group of heroes pushing, right, and you snipe, like, you just aim at their heads, you possibly can kill like 2 to 3 heroes in just one throw. So that's something to consider. All right, so we increase the damage here, and then you can increase the javelin's block break right here also, which would be good because if heroes are hiding behind block, at least you can break the block and then maybe the javelins get to the hero. Usually they're pretty good at sniping like the head of a hero, Like they're really good at sniping. Something Imperial Javelins are amazing at is just sniping. So definitely use them. If you can use higher ground to advantage, so you can like shoot over shields, that would be huge too. All right, so let's go ahead and throw that in there. And then one other one I would highly recommend is getting the damage dealt the heroes. That I would go for too. Like you just want to make them hero killers. Honestly, you want them to sit there and snipe out heroes, and then you just run up and destroy their units. So like, I know some setups that people like to use. Like I've noticed DD and Ripcats, who also play, they're very good dual blade players. They will stun lock you right in the Mark of Death alt from DB, and then they'll snipe you with their javelins, which is instant death. It's just instant death every time. Like it's a guaranteed kill every time. And that's why they do so well. They have a really good combination. So that also works with poleaxe, anything that can stun lock. Maul, when they run you into a wall and they just keep running and hold you in place, they can just jab throw you. There's a lot of stuff like that. So look out for that. If you see javelins and you see those type of heroes by it, you best expect that they're going for that type of kill. All right, so last but not least, I would get some more ammo. And you can use this exact same build on Jav Sergeants, but I would change this Assassination Doctrine to Breakthrough, because Jav Sergeants are really good at killing ranged, and they have a lot of ammo, so they can just keep throwing and like kill a whole set of Namkhan archers. They're good at countering Pavis, stuff like that. So if you're trying to counter certain range units, you definitely want to use Jav Sergeants over the Imperial Javs. Imperial Javs have so well of accuracy that they only hit so many units. But Javs, their accuracy is a little more spread out, so that it hits a lot more of an AoE effect. Okay, so that is what I see happening with javelins nowadays with the doctrine setups. Of course, if you have a different setup, I'd love to hear about it. If you use them in a different way, please let me know. But just from my experience, I'm just giving you some pointers on what you can do. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Imperial Pikemen. Now, Imperial Pikemen are really popular because of their advance walk, which you can see right here. Their advance is by far the most dangerous thing when it comes to cav charges and stopping them. So you're always going to have infantry players looking out for cav when it comes to Imperial Pikes, and then you're always going to have cav looking out for Imperial Pikes or Fortebraccio. So these guys are definitely endgame meta units, and the thing about that is, how should you build them? How should we set up their doctrines? How should we go about playing them? How can they sustain? And maybe you can get more than one walk in a game. So with that, I want to talk about the veterancy really quick. Now, the veterancy on these guys, I went defense, and the main reason why is to sustain and be able to survive after one advance. I've noticed top line, it does decent damage, but they die so quickly. They're just like gone with the flip of a switch. And some of the stuff doesn't work 100%. In my opinion, I've noticed some of this stuff doesn't work very well. And I've noticed that the bottom line works perfectly fine. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and talk about what doctrines I would use with the defense veterancy setup. Now, hitting all the wrong buttons. All right, so in here, a lot of different doctrines. So you can start using the polearm doctrines, epic doctrines. Now, something I would highly recommend is giving them a charge. Now, this charge is not for charging into units. It's for charging to the sides of units or around. Like maybe a cav charge is coming and you're out of place, so you can charge and then get into place. The charge will definitely help you with positioning. So I highly recommend that for newer players to mid-tier players. Even veterans can use this because they don't expect you to charge your imp pikes around them, right? I've seen some pretty cool videos of people charging onto the left side of Stalwarts, whatever unit it might be, Fortebraccios, and then they just start walking, and you just watch everything just fucking fold over. And it's a great thing. It's a great tool to have. So I do recommend using this charge. 100% recommend using that charge. You could use the sprint, but the charge I feel like is quite faster. And you can go a lot further with it. Now, with that said, we are going to want some damage. And I do encourage getting increased damage versus Cav. That is something I would recommend, because you do want to use them against Cav as much as possible. And then you also want to use your Epic Polearm Doctrine 1, which increases your damage by a lot. Also your penetration. Now, with that said, what's left, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of different things here. And a lot of people like using the brace weapon, stuns enemies. But I don't think that's really meant for Imperial Pikes. You're not really using them in a brace formation. You're using them for their walks. Fortunately, you don't get a walk cooldown anywhere. That would be awesome. But what you can do is just keep loading up on the damage. In my opinion, I wouldn't go for the stun, because you're not really using them in a brace formation. You're using them for their walks. So don't waste that doctrine on Imperial Pikes. I'd recommend using that on some other polearm units, and I'm going to talk about that here shortly. So what I recommend is getting a little bit more damage, because they are going to be lacking damage heavily, because you didn't go top line, and they don't do a lot of damage to begin with. So let's go ahead and increase all the damage we can. They're not designed for killing heroes, so definitely grab the Breakthrough Doctrine and just go for unit kills. Their whole purpose is to block out the unit, so then you can either push or hold your position. So that is the main purpose of Imperial Pikes. They will slow down a push, and then what's supposed to happen is your team is supposed to back you up and set up, either Fortebraccio, Stalwarts, maybe get a Cav charge in there. So that is the main design for Imperial Pikemen with their walk. All right, so that's all I have for these guys. Again, if you have different setups, please let me know. I don't expect you guys to have the exact same setup. Maybe you've found something that works better. Yeah, please let me know. And, it helps all the people that watch this video to read the comments, because there might be some good doctrine setups that people mention. So make sure to check out the comments, guys. You never know. So this is just my recommendation. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, so one unit I do want to cover, also a newer unit, is the Berserkers. Now, these guys they're impressive for how fast they can actually kill heroes in their frenzy. And the biggest thing about these guys is you got to get them to their frenzy to make them powerful. They have a lot of potential, but it's all based on their frenzy. Now, for their veterancy, I definitely went bottom line, because bottom line gives you the more rage quicker, and then you get frenzy quicker, and it gives you 20% more damage during frenzy. Like, you just melt heroes. If you can get your guys on a hero during this frenzy, they annihilate them. So that's huge, and they can't be CC'd while they're in frenzy. It's just bonkers. Of course, sustaining them is hard, but honestly, what you got to do is just, slowly, pick the fights that you can win, so you can get your frenzy right away. Also, when they take damage, they get frenzy also. Or, well, I should say rage. Sorry. They get rage that builds into their frenzy. So that's the biggest thing. The Odin's Charge increases their rage meter on how much they get. I forget what it is. I think, yeah, rage is increased by 25% upon hitting an enemy with Odin's Charge. So definitely use the charge to go in, and then you have that 25% increase. So just make sure you keep tapping V so they keep attacking. I did notice if you keep tapping V with them, it seems like the rage meter goes up a little faster. So maybe check that out. Obviously, that kind of puts your hero in like immobile state, but if you're really trying to focus on learning them, tapping that V to see how the rage builds up, and then using the frenzy is huge. So I highly recommend going bottom line. People might see top line because it's more sustained, but I feel like they don't do enough damage, in my opinion. They're good at like defending and kind of like sustaining here, but I want to see them annihilate stuff. I want to send them in, see them kill stuff, and then pull them out. All right, so with that said, let's talk about the doctrines. Now, the doctrines on these guys, there's nothing too impressive here. They are slashing damage, right? And they have decent damage already, and the frenzy increases that by a ton. So you definitely want to build defense on these guys. So one thing I highly recommend is getting the range, the resistant arrow doctrine. And then I would start aiming towards any other type of... So one doctrine that isn't in here, I can't get it on the test server, is this one right here. You're going to want this Berserkers doctrine right here. It increases health by 360 and then reduces range damage by 50. So count this as one of them, guys. All right, so with that said, let's go back. I just wanted to indicate that really quick. So that would be one of these, right? So in its place, let's just assume, let's just do the health doctrine, right? And then the health doctrine would be the other one that I just showed you. All right, so here you also want to increase piercing defense again. They don't have shields, so you need the piercing defense. Their biggest downfall is pikes. Any type of pikes that can keep their range and keep staggering them or stunning them will definitely win the fight. So their biggest counter is definitely pikes. Also Cav. Cav definitely will wreck them, but during the frenzy, Berserkers can destroy Cav, like absolutely destroy Cav. So if you wait for Cav to get on you and you have your frenzy and you just pop that frenzy as soon as that Cav jumps on you, they will do some work. They will do some work. All right, so on that note, then I would highly recommend getting some more damage here. You want to go for the hero, and then you also want to go for breakthrough. So assassination and breakthrough doctrine. They are really good at killing heroes during their frenzies. So that's why not increase the damage here? You could give him more slashing damage right here if you want. Like if you wanted to do this, you could just give them more slashing so that they do more to units also, and then also heroes. You could do this setup. This is very viable also. Actually, I might even recommend this one over the other. It's just hard to get these increased slashing damage rare ones. You have to use boxes usually. So that would be the setup for Berserkers. And then again, this health one would be that if you go into F5, I think it was the 4th or 5th stage, you unlock that doctrine, the Berserker doctrine. That would go here instead. So that would be the setup I would use here. All right. They aren't in territory wars. They're kind of viable. They're not really that popular right now, but I feel like it's because people don't know how to use them that well yet. And also there's only 8 of them. So, if you lose half, they kind of fall off pretty quick if you start losing them quickly. So there's that. And like Paladins, Paladins can beat them 1v1. So that's also something. And Paladins have a lot more units. And Azaps are really good too. So they're all kind of in the same boat. I would say Berserkers, Azaps, and Paladins all in the same boat for what they do. They charge in, do a bunch of damage, and then they jump out. I do think Berserkers have a more potential in killing heroes than, say, Paladins and Zaps. And Zaps have really good CC capabilities. Paladins have really good surrounding capabilities. Berserkers have really good damage capabilities. So they all kind of have their advantages. All right, so that is all I have for that. Let's go ahead and move on. All right, guys, now we're going to talk about one of my favorite pike units. It's going to be the Fortebraccio. So these guys are great at holding stairways. They can hold doorways, breaches, and they work really well with Stalwarts. And there's actually some really cool doctrines that work with them now, but let's really quick talk about the veterancy on them. Now for these guys, I definitely went defense because they do die fairly quickly if there is any archer fire on them, or if an imp pike gets on them, they can die fairly quick once they get knocked over. So I went defensive just so they can sustain a little bit longer at holding doorways and breaches, because there's going to be tons of shit being thrown at you. Artillery, especially in territory wars, you have all this artillery hitting you, so I make them a little more defensive. The top line's really good for damage, but I feel the bottom line works a lot better for how I like to use them. All right, so with that said, what doctrines should we use for these guys? Now, right away, I'm going to go ahead and say now that I'm using the defensive veterancy, I used to use the offensive, so I used to use more defense doctrines, but now that I'm using the defense veterancy on these guys, I'm going to be using more offensive doctrines. So first one I want to use is increase their damage and their penetration. So let's do that. And then also increasing damage versus cav is pretty huge for me, because I feel like they're definitely great at stopping cav. I feel like at endgame, people are smart enough to go around Fortebraccios, but sometimes they don't see them and they get caught, and having that extra damage could be huge. So this is one that I am kind of in and out on. Use it. I've been using it here and there, seeing if it makes a huge difference. It matters on if you're mostly fighting cav, but in endgame you are going to be mostly fighting cav, but people are smart enough to flank. So like, is it viable? I don't know. I'll have to keep experimenting. So another one that I absolutely encourage is getting the brace weapon stun enemies. This 100% is huge because they never had the stun before, but now they do, which gives them a huge advantage. Huge advantage. So besides this, since they are defensive heavy, I am going to go ahead and give them more damage. And they do the most damage while they're bracing. So I'm also going to give them the rare polearm doctrine 1. They don't have any other epic doctrines like this, so I definitely am going to use this rare doctrine. And then I most likely would go for where's piercing damage? I would probably go for this. You could use your breakthrough doctrine, or you could use your assassination doctrine, but honestly, you're not really trying to kill heroes. You're just trying to kill stuff that's coming through the gate, which would be infantry units and cav. I mean, if they're bringing their range through there, that's kind of dumb, right? So mostly infantry and cav. So I think this is the way to go. So you're doing more damage overall to most units, and then you're doing a little extra damage to cav. That is the route I would go. You could swap this. Out and just give it the you could give it the breakthrough instead, so you're doing more damage to all units instead of just cav. But it's up to you. Mix it up how you want. I don't recommend the charge. They should be in place already, so I don't recommend that. The sprint, I feel like there's too many other good doctrines to use over that. Reduces damage taken from arrows by 100. This is big deal too, but I feel like Fortebraccios are usually in a place where archer fire can't get to them. And they should be covered with Stalwarts, so that should deflect some of that damage too. So this is the setup I'd recommend if you have the defense setup. If you you have the damage veterancy, then you want to go more defensive on. You would want to get, piercing defense. You would want to get health. You would want to look at all these other ones that would give you some more defense. All right, so that is Fortebraccios, and let's move on. All right, so I've done mostly golden and epic units so far. So I'm also gonna do 1 or 2 rare units, just to kind of get some of the newer players an idea what they could use for TWs early on. So I'm gonna go ahead and do Landsknechts because they are very popular right now and they have great hero killing potential. So let's talk about them. Now, veterancy wise, you definitely want to go for the charge. They 100% have a beautiful charge. They pretty much put prefecture pikes out of commission because these guys can charge in and kill a lot of stuff. And they break block on Stalwarts too, which is pretty amazing, especially for a T3. So now what we want to check is you do want to go top line for, right here, the battle charge, and it increases the strike by 1, so you can hit 2 people on your strike. So that's huge. So what you do is you brace your halberds, and then when you're ready to charge, you charge in. And again, on the battle charge, I've mentioned this before in other videos, there are different colors, and the colors indicate how strong the charge is going to be. If it's dark blue, that means that it's going to be a good charge. If it's light blue, it's going to be the best amount of damage that you can get. So definitely look at the different colors when you're going to charge. All right, so with that said, let's talk about their doctrines. Doctrine wise, you definitely want to boost some of the defense on these guys. So I would definitely go with increases piercing defense, and then just a little bit of piercing defense, and then you're gonna want to go with hero killing for sure. And then you could go with breakthrough, but I think it'd be you'd be better off grabbing this one. Increases piercing damage by 80 and penetration by 120. So I think that would be the way to go. You definitely want more damage towards heroes. So, and then you could go for the cooldown, or you go more damage. So that was the difference I was seeing here. So what you could do is just go more damage right here, call it a day, or you can try to get a better cooldown on your charge. Usually you charge them in, they do a ton of damage and they die usually. If they clear the point, then yeah, you can use them again. But you should have a good 45 seconds before you have to use the charge again. So it really comes down to your playstyle. If you feel like you can get multiple charges off, maybe you get the charge cooldown. If not, then just put more damage on them. Or if you want more defense so they could survive, totally up to you. So this is just a quick build for these guys. I wouldn't waste too many epic doctrines on them. You don't really need the brace weapons done because you're not using them for the brace. You're using them for the charge. And then reduces damage taken from arrows by 100. That's a good one, but really you should be quick with these guys. You should place them in their brace and then charge them fairly quickly. You shouldn't be sitting there too long. It's not like you're keeping these guys at a gate or a breach where they have to take a bunch of damage. Usually you kind of move them around until you're ready to brace and then charge. So I don't think you're worried too much about range damage, unless you're trying to run up on range. But in that case, use your hero to deflect some of that damage and then let your units charge in. So that would be something to do. All right, so that is Landsknechts. Now I'm going to move on to the next one. Alright guys, so for the last infantry unit that I want to talk about, and by far like one of the most common units you see early on into mid-tier, would definitely be the Condos. Now, Condos were a Season 3 unit, and they've been popular ever since. A lot of people still use them, and it's because of their shock attack. Let's go ahead and take a look at that in the veterancy. So most people do go offense on these. From what I've heard, most people go offense. I've tried defense and offense. I prefer offense just because of the shock value and DPS that you can put out with the top line. Pretty awesome. Now, bottom line, if you feel like they're dying way too quick and you don't have the doctrine set up to set them up for defense doctrines while they're on offense, definitely go bottom line and then use whatever offensive doctrines you have and help boost your shock attack. So what you want to do here is you definitely want to get shock attack, and then we also are going to put iron sights on. So let's take a look at that. All right, so first couple that you want to put on would definitely be your epic sword doctrine. This will increase your slashing damage and your blunt damage. Really good for your shock attack. And then also you're going to want iron sights. Iron sights by far is awesome on sword and shield units. And then you also can get the increased piercing defense by 80 for slashing and piercing. And then outside of that, I would recommend getting the more slashing damage right here. And then you can definitely go with one more here. You can go with the block damage, or you can go with decreases the range damage. So it's up to you. If you feel like you're always dying to range, you can definitely go that route, or just get more block, which would be good for fighting up close in melee. So this is the setup I would go. If I feel like I'm dying a lot from range, I would go that route. But yeah, so these are Condos. Of course, epic doctrines on T3s isn't a popular idea, but these units are pretty good with them. And so I highly recommend, if you have the extras, throw them on your T3s and see how they do. I was pretty impressed. So definitely check it out. All right. All right, guys, I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit that like button. If you enjoyed it and you want to see more, hit that sub button to get notifications. Thank you guys again for supporting the channel. All I can really say is I enjoy making the content, and you guys make it all the worth it. So thanks for hanging out. I've been busy with school, and you guys are still, here supporting me. So I greatly appreciate you guys. Much love to all of you. Now, I'm getting the hell out of here. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will catch you guys next time.